Welcome to Uncomfortable Conversations, and thank you for supporting our mission to enlighten, encourage, and empower our viewers from around the world to be willing and ready to have uncomfortable conversations with our children, relatives, friends, and peers who may have dissimilar perspectives. Would you agree if we're willing to listen without judgment, argument, or debate, we allow ourselves the opportunity to learn a dissimilar perspective and confront our biases, assumptions, and stereotypes that prohibit our growth? For example, last week's topic was how to have a conversation about a cancer diagnosis. That's one that I know pretty well as a two-time breast cancer survivor, and it was a very sensitive conversation to have with my children at the time. So actor Glenn Close has said, what our mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. So let's have a conversation. And if it's your first time tuning into the show, my name is CJ Grace. I'm the author of two comic self-help memoirs, My Wild Ride, How to Thrive After Breast Cancer and Infidelity, and Adulterer's Wife, How to Thrive Whether You Stay or Not. And I'm very honored to co-host the show today with Sylvia Camacho. She's a financial advisor streaming live from California. Welcome, Sylvia. So
Good morning,
how has your
Happy
how
Wednesday.
yeah, so have you had any experience having to talk to friends and family about a cancer diagnosis?
Yes, it is super hard. My aunt passed away from liver cancer, and it was super. Um, we were not expecting that to happen, but it happened, and it's really hard to have a loved one with cancer, and you're just living day by day.
So
Yep.
today it's this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and how are we supporting that on the Thriving Women Network?
Well, CJ, in our Thriving Women, we always like to empower our viewers with bringing this conversation to them, and just to make sure that we are enlightening them with the topic. And in honor of the Mental Health Awareness Month, our mission is to address many challenges that face millions of people around the world living with mental health conditions. Through the month, organizations actively participate in the national movement dedicated to eradicate stigmas, extending support, fostering public education, and advocating for policy well-being of individuals and families affected by mental illness. We are doing our part by sharing empowering stories of the people that are sharing mental health advocacies in songs, books, journals, and poems. Today we're honoring Amanda Gurman, in our inaugural poet for the book called Us What We Carry, in which she shares history, language, and identity through an imaginative and imitative college. She harnessed our collective grief of a global pandemic. This beautiful designated book features poems in many innovative styles and structures, and shines a light on the moment of reckoning. Her poem reveals that she has become our messenger from the past, our voice for the future. So, CJ, let's listen to her poem, The Miracle Morning.
Hi, I'm Amanda Gorman, and this is my poem, The Miracle of Morning. I thought I'd awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming, but there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog across the street. A bright-eyed girl chases her dog, a grandma on a porch, fingers her rosaries. She grins as her young neighbor brings her groceries while we might feel small, separate, and all alone. our people have never been more closely tethered, because the question isn't if we can weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend like lights we can't be broken. Even when we bend as one, we will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, waiters, schools, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite, not in the light, but in lack thereof. For it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity, for it's our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever shall lose it. So ensure that this ache wasn't endured in vain. Do not ignore the pain. Give it purpose, use it, read children's books, dance alone to DJ music. Know that this distance will make our hearts grow fonder. From a wave of woes, our world will emerge stronger. We'll observe how the burdens braved by humankind are also the moments that make us humans kind. Let each dawn find us courageous, brought closer, heeding the lights before the fight is over. When this ends, we'll smile sweetly, finally seeing, in testing times, we became the best of beings.
Whoa,
That-
CJ.
That was a magic
beautiful.
woman, and she read the poem for the inauguration of Biden, actually. So that's why she is an inauguration poet.
Yes, CJ, and Amanda recites in her final part of her poem, we initiate not in the light, but in the lack, therefore. For it's in the loss that we truly learn to love. In the chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it's our grief that give us our gratitude. Show us how to find people if we ever lose it. So to ensure that his ache wasn't injured in the vein, don't ignore the pain. Give it a purpose and use it. What a great pivot today's topic of conversation, CJ.
That's true, Sylvia, because we've got some life-changing conversation topics that we've covered in the past. And one of those that we're covering today not only affects the individual, but also the immediate family. And that topic is talking about obesity. And a recent study in 2022 by the WHO stated, that was a study that came out in The Lancet, actually. It stated 1 billion people in the world are living with obesity. That's 1 in 8 people, actually. And obesity among adults has more than doubled since 1990 and has sadly quadrupled among children. That's 5 to 19 years of age. And 43% of adults were overweight in 2022. So what that means is that the majority of us are living with people who are struggling with obesity. So how do we have that conversation with somebody? And how do you do it in a sensitive way so you're actually having a positive impact rather than making somebody feel worse about how they have a weight problem? So it's our mission to share with you conversation strategies on how to have an uncomfortable conversation about dealing with obesity with our children, life partners, and clients. So let's watch this video about having a conversation on obesity with children.
U.S. health officials say childhood obesity continues to be widespread, and a new study takes a good look at the best way to help your child get on the path of health and wellness.
As KPRC2's Lisa Hernandez reports, what you say to your kids and how you talk about your own body in front of them plays a big role in their own weight loss journey.
It's such an important topic, and I feel like a lot of parents do struggle with talking about this with their children because nobody wants to body shame their child or make their child feel bad, right?
Kelsey-Seybold pediatrician Dr. Lakshmi Dharam says the topic of kids, junk food, and weight gain comes up a lot in her office. The CDC says 20% of U.S. children and teens carry excess weight, and it's having an impact on overall health.
Diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, those are not just adult issues anymore. There are plenty of children, juveniles who start, we start seeing type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol in children, as young as 9 and 10.
So how do you get your child to start eating healthier? Dr. Durham says this can't be an individual goal. The whole family has to be on board to make changes together.
It can't just be like, well, Johnny can't have Oreos, but everybody else can, right? It's not fair. Healthy eating, exercising is important for every member of the family, no matter what their size. And so kind of focusing more on what can we do as a family to support each other.
A parent's word choice is also important. A study published this month in the journal Pediatrics asked kids 10 to 17 about body weight and which words parents use that can be jarring or hurtful. Words like overweight, fat, and extremely obese all elicited the most negative emotions. More than a third of the children reported feelings of embarrassment, shame, and sadness.
When kind of kids hear those words, they kind of turn off and they're like, nah, I don't want to talk about this. And then words that children preferred to hear from their parents were things like healthy weight, normal weight, kind of a more positive focus on general health instead of, again, a number on a scale.
And parents, be mindful of your own negative self-talk. If mom and dad talk badly about their own bodies, that can leave a lasting impression about self-worth and weight.
Trying not to say like, oh, over Thanksgiving, I ate so much, like I put on so much weight, I don't look good in this anymore. Just being cognizant of what you are saying in front of your child, because we are our children's biggest role models. And they're little sponges. They hear what we're saying and how we feel, and they kind of, take that energy in.
Dr. Durham says it's key to make small, attainable goals for the whole family to eat better and move more. You can find tips on the American Academy of Pediatrics website. We have a link for you at clicktohouston.com. Lisa Hernandez, KPRC 2 News.
Whoa,
So-
CJ. It is something, I think as a parents or as an adults, we have to set the role models for our kids, for our children. I love candy. I love sweets. I love pizza, but yet it's like you have to rotate it, because once upon a time I was obese and I didn't know I was obese, because we used to eat like hamburgers, pizza, candy. But if we just adjusted with our children and say, okay, if today we have pizza this week, it will be pizza for this week, and not the whole week have other meals that makes them gain weight. So I think we have to set them with the role model of, okay, we can have a bad day and eat like pizza, hamburgers, you pick, but then we're gonna go eat healthy. So to avoid those situations, but we have to set the role model. We have to be the role model for them. And like she stated, don't talk about like, oh, I'm gaining weight. Oh, this doesn't fit. If we just stay positive around our kids, I think things will change. What do you think?
That's true. And I think one of the biggest problems is ultra processed food. There's so much out there, and all the snacks that people have. When I was bringing up my kids, we didn't have the regular breakfast sugared, the sweetened breakfast cereals, because really that's just like eating candy. I would let them have those variety packs on their birthday. That was a birthday treat to have those sugary cereals. I mean, I was, having them have scrambled eggs or unsweetened cereals, different stuff, sometimes oatmeal and those kinds of things, but not so much processed food. And I think that's one of the big problems. People think it's only fat that's the issue. And as we're going to find out, I think you're going to tell us about a cookbook that shows that fat is not necessarily the enemy. One of the biggest enemies in terms of weight loss is excessive sugar, refined carbohydrates, omega-6 oils. A lot of the seed oils are really unhealthy. They have the similar effect. You remember how we used to have trans fats in everything, hydrogenated vegetable oil, and margarine is so much better than butter. Now we're finding, no, margarine is actually really not good for you at all. The trans fats react really badly in the body. We aren't used to those kinds of compounds, and we're actually much better off with butter, with butter, grass-fed meat, those kinds of things are actually quite good for us compared to, you know, a bag of chips and something that's been deep fried in canola oil. So what books are we encouraging our viewers to add to their library today, Sylvia?
Well, CJ, one of the books is Getting Health Literacy is the Best Conversation Strategy Before Trying to Help Someone That You Love. A good place to start is by reading two books. Obesity Code, The Obesity Cookbook by Jason Fung. Jason Fung,
He's a nephrologist. He's a liver guy.
Functional medicine advocate.
Yeah.
Thank you, CJ. Advocates who promotes a low carbohydrate, high fat diet and intermediate fasting. Jason is the author of 3 other books on low carbohydrate diet books: The Complete Guide to Fasting, The PCOS Plan, Prevent and Reverse Polycystic Ovary Syndrome Through the Diet and Fasting, and Cancer Code, The Advocate's Intermediate Fasting and Low Carbohydrate Diet to Reduce Cancer Risk. During our break, we will share his intermediate fasting concept in his book's Obesity Code. CJ, have you had any experience with that kind of diet?
Yeah, I mean, intermittent fasting means having a break between eating. And I find that not eating late and having at least a 14-hour gap between my last meal at night and eating the next day makes a massive difference to how I feel, to maintaining a healthy weight. It's huge. I always find if I'm going to have chocolate, because I'm a real chocoholic, I love chocolate, but I have been able to give up things like cakes and cookies and those things because I think those are really worse because it's refined carbohydrates, sugar, ultra processed. Most of these things are ultra processed. So I try to avoid those, but I do love dark chocolate. But I don't have it late at night. I'll have it in the daytime. I'll have it, middle of the day. So yeah, I would say that the more paleo-based diet, which is good quality meat. I have organic or grass-fed meat and vegetables, and very low on the ultra processed food, very low, no seed oils, none of that kind of stuff with the linoleic acid, the omega-6, which is really not good for you. And I don't bother with non-fat or low-fat products. I have whole milk and whole yogurt, because a lot of that doesn't work. And I absolutely don't have any of the fake sugars, the artificial sweeteners. Those are also really, really bad for you. And the trouble is, a lot of people say that the vegan diet is the best and the healthiest. It's certainly the kindest to animals, but a lot of the ways that people eat vegan are not healthy because, again, some of the vegan products are ultra processed. The fake meats are about the most heavily processed items you can imagine, full of these seed oils like canola oil. And if you ever look at how canola oil is produced, gosh, I think that stuff would be better off trying to power a car than a human. It's a heavy industrial process to produce a lot of these oils. You're much better off cooking with butter or ghee or tallow or coconut oil. Those kinds of things are much, much better for you. So yes, I have had a lot of experience with that. And as a 2-time breast cancer survivor, it's really important for me to try to eat a healthy diet.
Stay healthy.
Yeah. So who have we invited to the show today, Sylvia, to share their passion for health literacy?
Well, CJ, we are so excited and honored to have Abby Pug, founder and CEO of Capital Health, on our show. Capital Health is a fitness and nutrition training company designed to assist individuals achieve their ideal health in person or in their device. Oh, I need that. There are no contracts needed, no fancy workouts, gear equipment, and no unnecessary expectations. All that is needed is for one to be themselves. We believe that you can get through all things by setting your mind to that task at hand, working together to accomplish your health and wellness goals. Oh, I love that. And when we come back from our YouTube break, we will discuss how to have conversations on obesity with your life partner, coaching clients and patients. And remember, Uncomfortable Conversation is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media, network training, coaching, and mentoring to produce your franchise show. For more information, visit our website, and we'll be right back to listen to Abby.
And Jason, do you follow a specific diet? And I'm curious, when it comes to fasting, what's a typical day look like for you?
I don't follow, I'm sort of low carb, not fully, I'm not like super low carb. I tend to not be too rigorous about the diet because there's many different diets that can work. Like if you look around the world, so if you go back again to the 70s, because that's a time when there's just not a lot of obesity, you have places in the world that are eating a lot of rice, like Asia, for example. You have places that are eating a lot of potatoes, perhaps in Ireland or something like that. And you have places that are eating a lot of fish. And, you know, every cuisine has sort of different emphasis, and they all did well. The key was that they weren't eating all the time, is the main key. And two, they weren't eating a lot of sugar. Once you introduce a lot of sugar and processing into the diet, that's where things go wrong. So really, I try not to be too strict on the macros so much, but really strict on the sugar and not eating all the time. And that's sort of the main thing. So I will eat sort of all different foods, but I try to eat as natural as I can. And also I try to avoid the carbohydrates, because carbohydrates in North America tends to be relatively refined. So that's the main thing that I try to watch out for in terms of the diet. And it's the same thing I wrote in the obesity code, right? The 1 and 2 is like, you know, eat natural foods and cut down the sugar. That's probably the two most important things. And then don't eat all the time. Carbohydrates, yes, they do play a role, but they tend to play a, probably not as big a role. So therefore, even though I try not to eat as much carb, I eat far less carbohydrate than I used to. For example, it's not something that I will just completely cut out for whatever reason. So a typical day is sort of like, I don't eat breakfast. Like I don't eat breakfast most days, honestly. And that was never just because I was trying to lose weight. It's mostly because I like to sleep more than I like to get up and eat, and I'm not that hungry. So why would I eat when I'm not hungry? It makes no sense to me. And then I try to not snack during the day, and then I'll eat lunch and dinner, or many times I'll do something at lunch. I'll work through lunch instead, and then therefore I'll just eat dinner. And that's about it. And that gives me a little bit more flexibility in terms of the foods that I can eat. And then once in a while, especially when I've gone on holidays or something, I might do a little bit longer fasting. So again, it just allows me more flexibility to eat different foods, which I enjoy.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
Well, CJ, welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. If you're just tuning in into our chat, our topic is how to have sensitive conversation on obesity. A recent study in 2022 by the WHO stated 1 billion people in the world are living with obesity. Obesity among adults has more than doubled since 1990 and has quadrupled among children ages 5 to 19. And 43% of adults were overweight in 2022. The majority of us are living with people that are struggling with obesity, but don't know how to have this difficult conversation. So CJ, Let's watch this video on conversation strategies with your partner on obesity.
When ladies hear the word fitness in a relationship, how do men bring that up in a respectful way, though? So it's like you're saying, like, hey, fitness is important. Men are physical creatures. We do want our significant other, our spouses, to be beautiful and gorgeous. But sometimes men, we can see our ladies starting to slip the same way ladies see us men starting to slip. How do men who are listening right now, who have a wife, what's the best way and the proper way to bring up, hey, we need to make some changes in the fitness area?
Lead by example. Ooh. So just a nugget for me. I noticed in quarantine that I began to pick up weight. And of course, I'm, beginning to approach that next decade of life. And as women like to say, that's when you're, things start to kind of shift and weight ain't flow. So I picked up a keto lifestyle. I didn't force my husband. I led by an example.
Wow.
And after about 3-4 months, he began to see my results. And he's like, I think I'm going to try that thing that you're doing.
I got you.
So I never downed him for bringing to bed, ice cream that I couldn't eat.
Right.
But because he saw the results. And so oftentimes we want to point out someone else's flaws, that mirror.
Yeah.
And not see it within ourselves. So when there is something within us, if we begin to deal on us first, our spouses or our significant other will follow if we're being the leader in that aspect without condemning them for it.
Yeah, I'll add to that. For men, you need to establish from the beginning that you are for her whether she swells or shrinks. If she knows that, because women will have children, they are going to swell, they're going to shrink. If she knows, doesn't matter what your size is, I'm here for you, you're always going to be beautiful. And you don't ever want to say, you look fat. You got to find ways, back to what Keisha was saying, lead by example. So I naturally will run, I'll work out, I'll work out. That's just kind of my thing.
Right.
But seeing the result.
Yeah, I mean, as women, Sylvia, we are very sensitive about our weight, and that can keep people that love from having a frank conversation about that. Our loved ones may not want to touch that difficult topic. So the next video will enlighten, encourage, and empower both life coaches and doctors on how to have these uncomfortable conversations with clients and patients.
For many years, I really struggled with bringing up the subject of obesity with my patients. I didn't really know how to begin. It seemed rude to tell patients that they were fat. And it's a shame, really, because I missed many opportunities. I've been working recently with some younger doctors, trying to find ways for them to bring up the subject of obesity for their patients in a way that the patients are really happy with. And this is what we've come up with, really. Listen to the patient's problem first, and then say something like, you've mentioned that your knees are hurting and they're very painful. I can see that's a problem for you. I just wonder whether your weight might be a factor for this. Are you interested in discussing this as an approach? Because I think it could help. And having mentioned it and asked permission, it's very important that you then wait for permission for the patient to say, yes, it's okay. So you see what I'm doing here is the framing of your question. So you've listened to the patient's problem, and then you're framing the idea of obesity in terms of this could be helpful for the problem the patient has mentioned. And then you're waiting for permission. So I'm saying to the patient, is this something you're interested in exploring? And then I'm waiting. In 5 years, I've only had one patient who hasn't given permission to discuss their weight. All the others have said, yes, I know I'm heavy. So all the other patients have said to me, yes, this is something I'd like to explore. I think it's so important that this is done in a collaborative way so that you're not telling the patient they're fat, you're framing.
That's really true. You cannot tell patients you're fat.
I thought there were some really good points being made there, you know, and so as you can tell, our topic today on Uncomfortable Conversations is how to have a sensitive conversation on obesity. And that's in the light of a recent study that was done in 2022 by the Lancet that stated that 1 billion people in the world are living with obesity right now, 1 in 8. And it's such a difficult conversation to have. And we're very excited to bring somebody into the conversation who is extremely qualified to enlighten, encourage, and empower us to have those conversation tools that we need to talk about obesity. We're excited to have Abby Pagood. She's the CEO and founder of Capital Health. Welcome, Abby, and she's got over 27 years of experience in the field of health and fitness, 6 certifications, and a relentless passion for health and wellness. And she transformed her survival skills, and hopefully you'll tell us about those, into a source of strength and wisdom. And she's inspired others to overcome their own challenges. Her aim is to push the boundaries of traditional fitness approaches with innovative strategies to optimize human performance and well-being. And Abby's mission is to revolutionize the fitness industry, and it's fueled by a commitment to empower individuals to unlock their full potential and achieve their health goals. So Abby, welcome to the show. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background and how you had to use your own survival skills to be able to survive, and then how that made you the person you are now with your fitness company.
Well, first of all, thank you, ladies, for having me on the show. I really appreciate being here. Sitting in backstage and watching all the videos that you were showing, the inside of me of ooh, like just kept popping out and getting me all riled up, ready to address every subject that was being discussed, regardless of if that's what I'm here for or not. So I just appreciate you guys having me on. A little backstory on me is, you know, I didn't necessarily have the best childhood upbringing to which I was born into. And so it was actually a lot of times when we are confronted with some hardship in our life, a lot of times, like as the poem said earlier today, it was about not, you know, seeing what we need to see in the lack of light. But one of the things I really wanted to point out is that we forget that we are the light. We are the light source within. And even though we have chaoticness happening around us, it's how we feel into that energy and persevere and what we accomplish and get through that really empowers us. It not only gets us more connected to our inner self and our purpose. And being my background, you know, I was born to, you know, I was a product of domestic abuse. I was born to a narcissistic sociopath and a bipolar mother that was self-medicating through alcoholism. So it was very hard for me to kind of get the direction that was necessary. And because of a lot of the hardship that I had to endure, it actually woke me up to my intuition much more quickly. You know, all of us have that internal voice that, you know, tells us that we need to take a left instead of a right, even though we're always taking the left. It's the spidey sense within us, and it's about getting more connected to self. And when we can start hearing our intuition, our inner voice speaking, it actually helps guide us through the decisions that we make. And a lot of those decisions are also connected to the choices that we make on what we're putting into our body and what we're subjecting ourselves to. So it's always goes down to, you know, what our self-worth is, and, you know, what we're attracting and what we are inviting into our life, because regardless, it does end up being a conscious choice for us and how we treat ourselves.
And May being Mental Health Awareness Month, did you yourself struggle with mental health issues given that really dire family background that you came out of?
Absolutely. It was very much of purging of traumas and figuring out where they played on my body. I was even misdiagnosed as bipolar because I was raised by a bipolar mother and had mimicked behaviors of a bipolar to where I was seen numerous times and they could not clinically diagnose me as anything because I didn't fit into the box. And so it was very interesting because, being put on medication myself blew me up into almost an obese state in my childhood, which was huge and like astronomical. I can't even describe for you the uncomfortability of your teen years and blowing up when you're used to being 102 pounds and going from 102 to 183 in less than a year. Because
and those were those the antidepressants that they put you on, or whatever medications they were?
Yes, it was a combination of those. It wasn't antidepressants, but it was some of those medications that are prescribed that give you the side effects of it. And what was worse is that I ended up having more issues on the medications than off because I wasn't bipolar, and so therefore
common. That's
it is very common. It's very commonality. Same thing for children with ADD today. A lot of children are being diagnosed with ADD when really a high protein diet and elimination of red dyes and actually all dyes entirely, along with our processed foods, actually neutralize and allow the body to calm down and stay in a grounded state so that they can focus. On top of having a proper exercise routine that actually keeps them focused and attention. There's a lot of where, I don't want to blame all of Western medicine because Western medicine has been tremendous in certain categories, but there is a parameter to which people are being put into boxes instead of being assessed for the individual's needs. Some people respond to keto. That's fantastic. But a majority of people do not. They actually feel like walking zombies. They are feeling they completely feel undernourished. They have a lack of focus. Those are the people that are not supposed to be on keto. So I always make kind of a joke of, if you're the right lab rat. And I say that because it's a trial and error. We have all these various diets, and it's not that one diet is the all root of everything. It's about making sure that the diet is changed for the person's particular needs, because we are all genetically made up with different material. We are all unique by nature, and we need to make sure that what we're putting into our body is harnessing what we're made of, not actually defeating it.
But ultra processed food is probably bad for everybody.
Absolutely.
Excessive sugar is bad for everybody.
Well, these are foods that really don't need to be part of our diet at all. They are, we got them as almost, I remember earlier someone mentioned something about having a treat for their birthday. That taught that, but what does that teach the child? That she teaches that when they have a special occasion or it's a reward system. So you just taught the child that they get rewarded for special occasions through food, not activity. So there's kind of that double-edged sword where, it's like, okay, someone's having a sad day, let's go get ice cream. Or it's, hey, you hit this achievement, let's go get cake. Why did the processed food need to be introduced in the first place? What was the need? Sometimes my children actually get really excited when it comes to going and getting sushi or going to one of their favorite restaurants, and they're eating normal, healthy, quality food. It was the type of food that was the excitement and the joy and the festivities.
Wow. So there's some really great points that you're making here. And when we come back from break, we're going to be talking about your approach to fitness. And if anybody has any additional questions for our guest, Abby Pagood, join our private Facebook group, Thriving Women TV, and post your question or comment. Don't forget, Uncomfortable Conversations is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. And if you want to produce a franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to do just that. And for more information, visit our website, thrivingwomennetwork.com. We'll be right back after this video.
So since we're talking about calories and calories in, calories out, it would be neglectful for us not to at least address exercise and talk about its role in weight loss, if there even is one, and how that impacts calories and that whole system.
Yeah, the thing about exercise is that it's extremely good for you, but the weight loss benefits are marginal. There is some benefit, but it's very small. And it's because it doesn't really affect the hormones that are important. Yes, it does in a sort of roundabout way because you're increasing the amount of calories that you're sort of using, but you're not really affecting the metabolic rate. So if you think about calories out, people think it's all about exercise, but it's not. If you think about basal metabolic rate, that's the amount of calories that you need to keep your heart pumping, to keep your lungs working, to keep your intestines and your liver and your brain, right? So this is just sort of every day you need a certain number of calories for energy. If you exercise, I'm not talking, about people who are exercising like 5 hours a day sort of thing, right? So if you do sort of mild to moderate exercise and if you've ever gone on one of those treadmills, you know how few calories comes out when you do a run or a walk. It's like 100 calories or 150, right? Again, the people I treat tend to be like sort of 65, 75-year-olds, right? I'm not talking about the 21-year-old sort of guy who's lifting 800 pounds, deadlift sort of thing. I'm talking about a 70-year-old person who has type 2 diabetes. So you do some walking. You do some walking for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. That's generally what we advise people to. It's like 120 calories. So 120 calories out of your 2,000 calories that you're using for your brain and your liver and your percentage-wise is just not that much. So even if you increase, even if you double, you go from 100 to 200 calories, you're still talking about less than 10% of your daily caloric expenditures. And you haven't made any changes because you think that exercise is going to make you lose weight. So therefore, you don't change the diet that gave you.
Wow.
Well,
so
CJ,
exercise, good for you, makes you healthy, but doesn't let you lose weight. I mean, it doesn't really help you lose weight as much as your diet choices help you lose weight. So I'm sure Abby, we're going to be bringing Abby in, and I'm sure she's going to have her own views on that. But that's at least what Jason Fung was saying. So over to you, Sylvie, to Abby. Your comments on
well, CJ, welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. If you're just tuning into our topic, our topic is how to have sensitive conversation on obesity. A recent study in 2022 by whom studied 1 billion people in the world are living with obesity. Right, CJ? Yep. So I think it's a great topic to have Abby on our show today to explain us a little bit more and help us how to overcome those issues. Up to you, CJ.
Yeah, so Abby, I'm sure I could see you going like this when you were watching that video about exercise. Well, exercise is good for you, but doesn't necessarily make you lose weight. So, Abby, what is your view on that?
He's not far off because, and I'm sure that he would agree with me if we were having a thorough conversation, because his expertise is he's right in there. And so, a lot of times what people don't understand is that there's a lot of variables that factor into how your body is handling things. So not across from just nutrition, but also for the exercise, your body responds a particular way. And the reason why I'm saying that is how my body reacts to, let's say, a banana, to how your body reacts to a banana is completely different to how Sylvia's body is going to react to a banana. And what I mean by that is there is an inflammatory response that our body has to the foods that we consume, in addition to the exercise that is introduced to our body. Okay. Now, when we are talking about this is, when we sit there and talk about exercise promoting weight loss, well, absolutely it does, because if we're not getting exercise, we're not increasing our volume of oxygen, which means our oxygen is not getting to our muscle stores to help build the muscle, replenish it, and also intensify our muscle mass. Our muscle mass helps dictate how much we can consume. So there's this fine line where a lot of people will say it used to be 70% had to do with nutrition and 30% had to do with exercise. Now people are saying it's more like 80 or 90% is all about nutrition for your effective weight loss and leaving exercise. I think that gives exercise a bad score. Like, I actually don't think that that's fair to exercise. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get a ton of weight loss done through nutrition, if not all of it, period, just by making the proper changes to your particular needs. However, if you do that and you don't factor in exercise, that's where you start having people that have rapid weight loss. They might even lose it from muscle mass, which that muscle mass was actually allowing you to eat a certain amount of caloric content, which I love food. I love food, but I also don't want to show that I love this food as much as I do. So it's about, it's creating that fine line of, okay, the exercise allows me to output and put out energy, but at the same time, I don't go to food to replenish the energy source for my exercise. I actually select food for how my body will react and feel and perform during exercise. A lot of times in my career, especially when it comes to your classic personal trainers, and they're fantastic because they keep us motivated and they keep us geared where we need to be. However, a lot of times when you have a training session with them and they killed you, like almost like, oh, they wiped you out, I almost died, that has a little bit to say of how they trained you, but more about how you're feeding yourself nutritionally. Did you actually supply and regain your muscle, your glycogen storage so that you have the energy to continue activity day in and day out? So when I have someone that's wiped and toasted when they're training and exercising, my question is, what did they put into their body prior that did not allow them to perform the way that they needed to? And so therefore, there's this very interesting, harmonious quality that you have to find within the type of exercise that you get into. People that have very high stress jobs, especially, our lawyers, doctors, long hours, surgeons, all of that. Those types of individuals actually benefit more from a rejuvenative exercise like yoga and Pilates than they would a boot camp. A boot camp would actually offset their adrenals because their cortisol levels get thrown in and out of whack. They already have a high stress environment. So then if they go into a boot camp for them, they actually wipe out their energy stores and then they set themselves up for adrenal fatigue and then they're always wiped. So we always have to pay attention to what's going on with our body today. Sometimes it's okay to wake up and say, hey, I'm supposed to do my exercise and get my energy out and get my body feeling good. Well, then what if you didn't sleep well the night before? Or what if you're dealing with a family member that has cancer and you're already high stress and high wound? Maybe it's actually better for you to do a guided meditation than it would be to perform an extensive exercise routine that would leave you feeling even more fatigued and put more pressure on your liver. Your liver's already doing enough processing stress, hormones, all the toxins within our bodies. It is an overload. And that's one of the reasons why, a diet like keto, I'm not a big fan of, because keto manipulates the liver function. It puts you into more of a survivor mode, and then it forces the liver to process all of its energy for you so that you can keep functioning. If you put that much stress when you're already in a high stress environment, or you're some of those ladies that are hitting that 40, 50, feeling a little fatigued and bloated and I don't know what to do with these hormones, why would you put more stress on your liver? Your liver is the coolest organ in the world that can do anything you ask it to. It can take carbohydrates and protein and fats and then deliver it to what your body needs to stay functioning. So there's a lot more to go into it, but by all means, it's about keeping balance, listening to your body and what it needs, not just on a weekly basis, but on a daily, even in an hour basis. Even trying to give yourself moments where you can have peace of mind to release some of the stress that's within your body, but also starting to pay attention on what foods cause you to bloat. What foods are causing you to feel down and a lower vibration? What kind of exercise leaves you feeling upbeat and positive, and which ones are actually dragging you down and making you feel like you're a zombie? So it's really about paying attention to how your body reacts, and then finding and trying. It's about a lot about trial and error, making sure that you're finding the right type of movement for the right time when you're needing it in your life, and not feeling guilty about doing what your body needs.
So this is quite a unique approach because you're tailoring it to the individual. You're saying there is no one size fits all answer to dealing with weight loss or dealing with healthy exercise, right?
Absolutely. And actually, this philosophy needs to be brought out for everyone, even when it comes to medical care and medical approaches as well, because how your body reacts to something is completely different to how mine will react. And we need to be aware of that. And so the doctor that was on earlier, the video clip, he was fantastic because the first thing he said was listen to your patient, because he wanted to hear how I cannot tell you how your body is feeling. Only you know that. And then it is my job to help feel through that with you to see what is in alignment and what is not in alignment, what needs change and what is actually working for you. And it, a lot of people sit there and they think, when you're approaching nutrition, oh, it's all going to be about meal prepping. I hate meal prepping. It does not work in my schedule. It is like, I like fresh food cooked right off the gate. I don't always want to grab a plastic container and microwave it and then get subjected to the plastic container environments that end up causing toxins in your body, right? So, it's about, and there are people that they work in they're working in a cubicle all day. They have to food prep if they want to be healthy. That's great. But let's make sure that it fits your schedule so it's sustainable. And that, when you have a day that you don't have time to prepare, maybe that's a time where you outsource the food prep, or you outsource where you're getting your supply from, so that you stay on top of your goals and you don't have such an inconsistency like most people have day in and day out.
So do you have an idea of an ideal diet that would suit most people, even though you do tailor things?
Yes, CJ, that is a fantastic question. I love that you asked me that because I don't get that question a lot, and I wish I did. I actually have a hit list of foods I remove right off of the gate. I usually cut gluten right out immediately, predominantly because I am in the States. Now, if we were in Europe and other areas, the way that the processing is, foods are processed on top of how they treat their grains are completely different. In the United States, there's a lot of filtration. We process it, before in the 50s, gluten wasn't an issue. We only processed it through maybe once or twice. Now it goes through a processing of like 20 different chains before we even get it on the shelf. There's been a lot of additives that have been added to foods. So that's why food sensitivities are on the rise. People used to have a consumption of dairy and it was a healthy amount. I always say, if you're going to consume dairy, don't have more than 2 servings a day. So if you have your slice of cheese or your glass or your protein shake, that's it, you're done. So, but nowadays it's in the protein bar, it's in bread, it's in, it got sprinkled onto a sandwich. There's so many different exposures that we're seeing a higher influx of dairy sensitivities on the rise. And a lot of that is what's messing with our children's hormones. So when I end up saying is if dairy is not necessarily a necessity in the house, there is plenty of forms that you can get naturally to address calcium and vitamin D. And so it's like really more paying attention of, let's cut gluten, let's cut the dairy, let's cut some of the excess oils, because as you said earlier on this show, it's not causing a positive reaction in our fat consumption. We need more healthy forms. So I really pay attention to more of our eliminating the saturated fats, trans fats. thank goodness our country has finally realized how bad they were. But like, that was information that was 15 years ago. And now it's brought up today as if it's brand new, and it's not. It's been on the hit list for years. The great thing is now it's starting to filtrate through our society. So now everybody knows about it more consistently, and it's forcing the government to actually say, oh, by the way, we can't have this in our foods. Yeah, good job. It's about time.
But what about organic sourdough bread that's artisan produced, or, you know, grass-fed ghee and those kinds of things? Those are very good sources of omega-3 fatty acids. And generally we have too much of a balance of omega-6, which isn't good for us, versus the omega-3.
No, I'm everything you said was spot on. That did not need addressing whatsoever, because I'm all about the grass-fed beefs, omega-3s, making sure we're getting a wide variety of those foods. Now, when it comes to the processing, you know, we eliminate the processed foods, but then we're still stuck with the organic foods. Now, my rule on when it comes to organic versus non-organic is that if you're consuming the skin, if you're consuming the ingredient, so if you're cutting out the shell, it may not have to be as important. Like in avocado, you have the shell of the avocado, you dig the avocado out of the shell. That has a protective barrier that is not going to infiltrate your food as much as it would where an organic, if we're having a strawberry, you're eating that straight. That is a necessity. A bell pepper would be a necessity. So it's kind of paying attention to what are you consuming, always making sure that you're washing things beforehand very thoroughly so that you make sure that you're removing any kind of chemicals that were in production that were exposed. But when it comes to more of the, you know, here's an organic bread, or here's that, it's still a starchy carb. So carbohydrates are fruits, vegetables, and then your grain system. People forget that fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates. So when they say low carb diet, they're really meaning they're getting predominant of their nutrition from their vegetable and fruit sources, and they're staying away from more of your grain sources. And the reason for that is we really only need our grain sources to keep a very I like to say it's like your emergency fuel tank, right? When you're in your car and you're on the last, when you hit that E and you still got 20 miles left, those starchy carbs are like your 20 miles before I have to get my gas. They keep us, they're that very low undertone running fuel. But if we're getting it from all of our white grains, right, that has a higher glycemic level, which that higher glycemic level burns more quickly in our system. It's not what we don't need that readily available. We're getting that from our fruits and vegetables. So the only type of grains are kind of those, you know, we're talking our quinoas, we're talking our brown rices, we're talking our millets and our amaranth, and, you know, all of the ancient grains. They have a little bit of a protein content to them, but they're not always necessary every single day. Maybe once, twice a day tops, and we should be good to go. Now, when our children are consuming, they're growing. They actually are living off of more of a higher carb diet. That's why they crave higher carb diets. The problem is if we're exposing them to higher processing and higher glycemic levels, higher sugars, then we're missing and we're starting to teeter into the diabetics. That's when we start teetering into overconsumption that is causing some of the obesity and the inflammatory response within their body. So we really want...
Yeah, we're running out of time here, but you've made some fantastic points. We could really have another hour-long show, I think, on all of this stuff. We'll have to have you back.
Yes, I would love that. And I do have to say one thing, just to make sure that everybody is aware. The only thing that I didn't hear about was sleep deprivation.
Oh, yes.
Sleep is actually one of the leading causes of obesity. And how we sleep and how we're getting our sleep is actually one of the influential factors. If we are getting an under amount of sleep or an oversleeping concept, we actually struggle more with our weight. We really need to stick within that 7 to 9 hours a day. And if you're not getting within 7 to 9 hours a day, then that's where you start looking at some of those obesity issues sneaking in.
So Abby, I have 3 questions for you. I know we're running out of time.
Yeah. just finally, how do they get in touch with you if they want to if anybody wants to work with you or get in touch with you? Abby?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the first thing they can do is they actually can call 866 Capital. That's KAPITOL. That will get personally. In addition to, you can also go to capitalhealth.com. And you can also look us up on Facebook and Instagram at Capital Health. And pretty much just type in Capital Health or Abby Pagood and I will pop up somewhere.
I have one question for you.
Yes, dear.
Our network does not have a health and wellness show. Would you consider joining the Thriving Women Network team and build your network, Abby?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. I would love to do that.
Well, that would be terrific. And then we could talk more because we're running out of time. And we really, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface here.
Well, I think we hit a lot of subjects, but it's also because there's so much to consider. And I think that a lot of times when we try to give the viewers the information, it's hard to summarize and elaborate at the same time because just one subject could go on for an hour. And that is why I have a podcast, so to address those concerns.
Okay, well, we want to thank our viewers from around the world for supporting our topic on how to have a conversation about obesity. And we want to thank our guest, Abby Pagood, founder and CEO of Capital Health. That's spelt with a K, KAPITAL, Capital Health. And you can get in touch with her on 866 Capital, spelt with a K. She's, as you could tell, she has a passion for health and wellness. And we hope that you were enlightened, encouraged, and empowered to have a conversation about obesity and healthy living with your life partners, children, grandchildren, and friends. And also, we recommend you checking out that book, The Obesity Code, with written by Jason Fung. Over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, girl.
Welcome to have you here at the House of Thriving Women Network and ready to show us some healthy diets and exercise. And if you have any comments about our topic of today, join our Thriving Women TV Facebook group and post your experience so we can learn. Don't forget to turn into Every Child Can Learn TV today at 2 Eastern. Their mission is to remain education and learning simple for children. And remember, Uncomfortable Conversation is sponsored by Thriving Women University, an affiliate of the Thriving Women Network. If you want to produce your franchise show, TWN provides the media network training, coaching, and mentoring to do just that. For more information, visit our website, thrivingwomennetwork.com. Well, Abby, it was an honor to have you here at our house today of Thriving Uncomfortable Conversations. We learned a lot from you. Thank you, CJ, for having me today. It was an honor to be co-hosting with you.
Yeah, and we'll be back next week with more uncomfortable conversations.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day.